Governor, you mentioned that the Louisiana Constitution in the '70s was probably your best accomplishment, but what was the best thing about being governor for 16 years for you? What was the thing you enjoyed the most?
Being able to help people who theretofore had no voice, didn't know how to get in touch with anybody. One of the things that I like to think is true is that when I was governor, people could get something done. They could find out what was happening. They could touch someone or talk to someone who could help them. I've heard so many people since then say they were unable to get the guy on the phone, couldn't get anybody on the phone, nobody answers the phone, nobody cares about my problems. Well, we're supposed to care about people's problems. That's what we're in office for.
Corruption. That's tied to some of the things that go along with your legacy. I want you to talk about this because I've often wanted to be able to sit and ask you about that, because I was reading some quotes from you this morning, and just some of the things that you say are just interesting. When you look at that and people consider you to be a corrupt figure, a corrupt politician, people say that you sullied Louisiana's reputation with things that you did. What do you say to people who say that?
I ask them to give me an example. You know, those very people will look you in the face and tell you, I stole from the taxpayers. But I've been investigated 20 times by federal authorities. I had a very critical press when I was governor. It's not like you nice fellas now. They were always looking for, as a headhunter. And I was prosecuted 4 times. But no one has ever accused me of taking money from the taxpayers. Nobody. And I kept the budget in balance for 16 years. I left $1.5 billion in a special dedicated education fund, which is in the bank today for the people of this state. In 1986, I made a settlement with the federal government on a tidelands issue, made $600 million, and I put $540 million of it in a special fund for education, which has grown now to $1.2 billion. Rather than take money from the taxpayers, I did what no other governor has ever done. I left a hell of a large surplus in dedicated funds for education.
When people say that money from gaming was supposed to go to help education and was supposed to fund a new era of education in Louisiana, and they haven't seen that happen because our public school system, statewide run public school system, is not, I don't consider it stellar. What do you say that money that was supposed to go to things like education never made it to the classroom?
That's an inaccurate statement.
Okay.
The money was not dedicated to education. We took the position that it's $600 million a year, which can be used for all purposes, including education. And some of it did go there.
Did enough of it go?
Not all of it, of course, but there were other needs that had to be addressed. But what Governors Foster, Blanco, and Jindal did with the money is something that I didn't follow. But I can say this with certainty. Nobody stole any of it. It might have been put in improper places, but it was not stolen. And people are wrong, just very wrong, when they accuse me or anybody else who's been governor as taking money from the taxpayers. Let me say this without contradiction. There has never been a penny missing from the state treasurer since I've been governor.
Do you feel like people who say that there were backroom deals going on, that even the Gaming Commission was set up as sort of a proxy group of people who would do your bidding in back channels? What do you say to that? Because there are a list of them out there. You know what I mean?
First, Governor Roma passed the bill that set up the commission. I didn't. Second, during my trial, I was not accused of selling riverboat licenses. That's a popular misconception. I was accused of extorting people who testified that they paid me even though I had done nothing to help them. Now, let's go one step further. Read the record. The chairman of the commission testified that I had told him repeatedly, just do what's right. He also said I never asked him to do anything one way or the other. The chairman of Governor Foster's commission testified that he knew of no instance where anybody had been pressured to do anything one way or the other. There were 2 members of the commission that testified, and both of them said that I had not even contacted them about a riverboat license. One of them testified that I told him, do what's right. And he was one of Governor Foster's commission. Now, let me make this very clear. Popular misconception is that I went to prison for selling boat licenses. There were 45 applicants. Most of the applicants had good friends of mine as joint venturers. I didn't want to take a position in favor of one or the other. It's not a good political thing to do, and I didn't do it. I left that up to the commission, and that's the way it came out in the trial and in fact.
Did you have any, did you try to sway any of the commissioners in any way toward or away from someone?
Never. And no commissioner testified to the contrary. And let me tell you this, the FBI and the prosecutors talked to every one of them, drug them before the grand jury, and tried to get them to say that, but they were very honest. The governor never asked me to do one thing or the other, and I did not, for the very reason. Forget about the fact that I'm an honest person. If you don't want to believe that, that's okay. You can believe this. I was not going to take a position in favor of X when my friend Y was a competitor. I stayed out of it so that I could tell Y, if you don't get the vote, it wasn't my fault.
Cleo Fields, what's your opinion of it?
He's a very good politician and obviously a very good lawyer. He's done very well.
No, personally.
Oh, we're good friends.
Still?
Still, absolutely. You know, I promised to help him when he ran in the runoff with Foster. I couldn't raise funds because nobody thought he had a chance of winning. But I did tell him, look, I'll do what I can for you at the proper time. Later on, he reminded me of that, and he was in debt. So I gave him $20,000, which it's on film. Mm-hmm. And it had nothing to do with riverboats. It had nothing to do with politics at the time. He had been defeated. I was out of office, and he was out of office. And if I chose to give him my money, that was my business. And let me say to this, the feds tried every way possible to make a crime out of it, but they just couldn't do it.
On this video, apparently you and he are talking about business, and there is audio about him using some racially inappropriate language on there. However, he was never called to testify, correct?
No.
So
wasn't indicted.
Wasn't indicted. So he's in a room with you receiving money. Some of this video is trotted out as part of evidence that something funny was going on. He's never testified, and it's never really addressed. What about that?
It was funny because I was a politician out of office, and he was a politician out of office, and I was helping him based upon a promise that I made him 4 years before. That's very funny. That doesn't happen often.
Do you think he's a good person?
Absolutely.
When you look at your reputation here in Louisiana, define it to me. Tell me what you think the reputation of former Congressman, former Governor Edwin Edwards is in Louisiana.
It must be good because I succeeded. On the other hand, I'm perfectly aware that there are many people out there who are unhappy with politicians in general and me in particular. It goes with the territory. People who have no knowledge or no reason to accuse me or some other politician of doing something wrong just have a bad feeling about it. And I understand that. That's one of the reasons why I have been so outspoken all my life. You know, what I do because I think it's the right thing to do. People disagree, but at least I don't BS them. I tell them the way it is.
And you look back on your private and personal life, for that matter, and all of it together, and you look back on it, if there was anything you could change, what would it be? You've probably had a lot of time to think about that over the last few years.
I don't know anything that I would change as significant. I'm glad that I went in politics. I'm glad I was able to serve. I go to bed at night and I sleep. I have no fear. I don't worry about dying. I don't want to die because I love life, but I'm not afraid of dying. Life has been very good to me. I'm going to tell you something, if you'll allow me. I live my life the way the poet Bryant said in Thanatopsis. So live that when thy summons comes to join that innumerable caravan which moves to that mysterious realm where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death, thou go not like a quarry slave at night scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams.
How is your health?
Very good.
Good.
I'm 84 years old. I don't have any pain. I take medication for high blood pressure and also for high cholesterol, but I keep it within an acceptable level. And I'll tell you the truth, I wish everybody in the world could live a life as long and as well as I have. I have been very, very fortunate, and I never let a day go by but that I express gratitude for my health.
Right. Well, you said you wouldn't change anything. You went to prison for 10 years. What about that?
Well, I certainly would change that if I could. But that's something I couldn't change because I'm not responsible for going to prison. I went to prison because friends who testified that I didn't help them paid me after I was out of the governor's office. Nobody said I ever got a nickel from them while I was governor. They testified that they thought I might create problems for them if they didn't pay me. They didn't give one example of anything that I tried to do to them. They just said they thought it. And by the way, unfortunately, that's the law. If a person honestly, legitimately feels like somebody in power could use the power to hurt them, that's extortion. It doesn't have to be real as long as he has a reasonable expectation that the person can extort him. And that's what they testified. Let me tell you, in the DeBartolo case, which was one of the main elements of the trial,
Eddie DeBartolo, the former owner of the 49ers.
I was out of office for a year before that happened. How could I have extorted him? I had no power. Governor Foster was governor, and it would be a fool to suggest that Governor Foster would use his authority to hurt anybody. That's not his demeanor and his character. And DeBartolo testified that we had 29 recorded conversations. 27 of them he initiated to me. On 2 of them I returned his phone calls. All he's doing all the time is telling me I need to get involved, I need to help him, he wants to get a license. I was no longer governor. I'd been out for a year. Governor Foster was governor, and you cannot suggest that he was doing anything improper.
So you weren't doing anything in channels there with DeBartolo, because I do have a follow-up.
Not at all. And in spite of the fact that he said I extorted him and he was afraid I was going to hurt him, in all of the conversations I kept telling him, don't worry. Your license is one of the best. I'm sure it's going to get approved. There's nothing you need to do. Just leave it alone for the time being. In the one unrecorded conversation we had, he claimed that I extorted him. Nothing on record of that, and nothing in the phone conversations which the government played.
What about people who say you are painting everyone else as the culprit in here and painting yourself as the victim?
Not everyone else, but I'll tell you this. The 6 main witnesses that testified against me, 4 of them were convicted felons when they testified because they made deals with the government to save themselves. I don't blame them. You know, when you're facing a loss of $100 million on a riverboat and you offered an opportunity to get out, you know, I might be tempted to lie about you for less than $100 million. The other 2 were convicted of felonies after they testified. One of them was guilty of embezzling $30 million from his law firm. He's in prison today. The other one was guilty of the awful crime of stealing 2 TV sets from his employer.
And they all knew that you were the guy that the feds really wanted to get anyway. Right?
Well, of course. Everybody knew that. You know, they've been after me for 30 years.